Hello everyone, today I'm just bringing you a quick update on my recent video titled Why Do Developers Keep Changing Genre? A few people have commented since saying that Final Fantasy's not really changing genre, it's still going to be an RPG, but it's changing from a turn-based RPG to an action-based RPG. So it's really a changing subgenre, but I mean I think there's even actually some debate where people were saying that it's not even it's not technically a turn-based game because there's a time limit. I don't think that argument really goes anywhere because just because it's time doesn't make it any less turn-based. It certainly isn't an action game, the original. But these are all technicalities really, and they kind of derailed the original post. I sort of knew that it would get derailed, but I thought it would actually get derailed where people would talk about series changing genre, like games like Resident Evil 4 changing to action, but I was really wanting to focus on remakes changing genre. So let me rephrase the title of the original video to "The remake of Final Fantasy VII will not be like the original Final Fantasy VII." And I don't want to get hung up on how it'll be different or to what degree it'll be different. The fact is that it will be different, and that's what I have a problem with. I want it to be like the original game, but just in HD graphics with some upgrades, but not. I want the core gameplay to be the same, and I want it to be the same experience. And to some people it's not even a big deal because it's still going to be an RPG, but it's just going to have action elements now. As long as it's based on the original, even if it's loosely based on the original, they don't mind. They want something new. I was actually surprised to speak to so many people who actively want an action game. I thought that people were just apathetic about this. They just thought, well, whatever, not really thinking about it. They're just happy to get something. But actually people want an action game. And I get the sense that people feel that the original Final Fantasy VII is breaking free of its turn-based shackles, and that it was only ever a limitation because of the PlayStation 1 hardware, and this is the game that it always should have been or always would have been if the developers could have made it like that. Much in the same way that some old games like Mario and Zelda naturally made the transition to 3D, people think that turn-based games will eventually just make the transition to action games, because why do we need turn-based games anymore? Because we have better processors. Action games sell better. I mean, Resident Evil 4 is a perfect example of a... In fact, Resident Evil 2 sold really well also, actually, when you look at the statistics, but Resident Evil 4 is a good example of a game series that changed genre, but targeted a new audience and sold really well. And it was actually a really good game too, but does that mean that every game should just be an action game from now on? Like, just because action sells better, let's take everything, like, let's say a niche game like Dark Souls. Let's take everything that's original about Dark Souls and let's just remove it all and just turn it into a full-on action game where you're just running through it, pressing the A button, not having to worry about putting your shield up or any of that kind of stuff, and like don't worry about the health system or anything like that. Let's just like have checkpoints and all sorts of stuff. And I don't even know why people bring sales into these conversations, because are you a shareholder in these companies? Do you really care how many they sell? As long as you can buy your copy, why do you care about how well it sells after that? As long as you get your hands on the game and the company can turn a profit. I mean, it doesn't have to sell millions and millions. And even if you take like the music industry, for example, Justin Bieber like sells millions of songs, but does that make him better than another artist? I personally don't like Justin Bieber, so who cares how many he sells? That doesn't make me think, well, he must be good because he sells a lot. And I think I could be overcomplicating the issue here. Action games sell better because more people want to play action games. So to the people who want Final Fantasy VII to be an action game, I have one question. How much do you really like turn-based games? And feel free to answer that in the comments. I really like turn-based games, and that could be the factor on why I want Final Fantasy VII to be a turn-based game. Other people might want it to be an action game because they like action games and they're not really interested in the turn-based element of it. I should point out that there's historical reasons and like preservation reasons why I want the game to be like the original, but also I just like turn-based games, so that could be the factor that's pulling this together. And that's why this subject is so subjective because everyone's going to come at this from a different angle, and they all like their own things. But when you go to buy a game, when you go to lift a game off a shelf, or it's not really done like that anymore, when you look up a game that you're thinking about buying, you're looking for things like the gameplay mechanics. If you like a first-person shooter, you're going to buy a first-person shooter. You're not going to look at it thinking, well, for historical reasons, I'd like this game to be this. And this is the same when it comes to Final Fantasy VII. I like turn-based games, so I would like the remake to be turn-based. So that's how simple this could be. Maybe the people who want it to be an action game, their action part of their brain outweighs their turn-based part, and they just think, I want it to be an action game, and they don't care that it's not like the original. My friend Greenfire made a good point on Golden Age Gaming, where he said that this isn't actually a remake, it's a reimagining. And in fact, I'll just read out what he posted. This Final Fantasy VII Remake is anything but. It's not a remake, it's a reimagining. They're changing key story elements, key characters, key settings, and they're removing gameplay styles, replacing it with something completely different. Fans have been crying out for a graphical remake. In this GoldenEye remake, or reimagining, the creators of it at least had the decency to call it a reimagining, because they knew ultimately, although it's similar to the original game, as in it's a first-person shooter, and the remake of Final Fantasy VII will be an RPG, it's not really going to be the same. It's going to be a reimagining. So I don't think people should call this a remake. A few final thoughts on this. For anyone that's buying Final Fantasy to relive or re-experience the original, you may think you're playing Final Fantasy, but you're being cheated. You'll never in a trillion years experience Final Fantasy unless it's turn-based and has all the other things that Greenfire listed. Square, Activision, Capcom and companies like them, they aren't making games, they're making money. And as long as you keep buying their mass market games, they'll keep making them. So out of respect for the original Final Fantasy VII, I won't buy the reimagining.